In the base case, roughly 22,300 jobs would be supported directly for a total of 33,350 jobs when you incorporate the 4,400 jobs that would be supported in the supply chain and the 6,700 jobs that would be supported through induced spending of the direct and indirect workers. Uh, in addition, direct state and local taxes are estimated at 420 million, with an additional 40 million in indirect state and local taxes and 70 million in induced state and local taxes. So this includes both the retail tax, retail sales tax, and wholesale excise tax, as well as taxes that are generated just through economic activity. Somebody, one of the workers who's directly employed in the adult use market, goes and buys groceries, they pay taxes. In addition, Pennsylvania's GDP, or gross regional products, would increase by over $4.2 billion. Most of these impacts, like I mentioned, will be directly supported by the cannabis sector, but there would be meaningful contributions both from the supply chain and from induced consumer spending. 2/3 of the estimated jobs are direct cannabis jobs. And also, one thing I'll point out here, some of these indirect jobs may also be classified as cannabis jobs, because if you are a cannabis firm and you hire legal services who represent cannabis firms, that may be considered a cannabis job as well, but that's not the way the model differentiates it. In the base case, a little bit about what types of jobs these would be. The retail sector would support about 50% of these jobs, so these are a lot of dispensary jobs. But the remainder would be indirect jobs supporting retail or induced jobs generated via increased consumer spending. And over 8,000 jobs would be supported by cannabis cultivation. And administrative and management positions also play an important role in the market. And in addition, there are some manufacturing and distribution jobs associated with the adult use market, both in the base case and in the low and high cases. Tax impacts. So this $2.1 billion legal adult use cannabis market that we're projecting would generate significant state and local tax revenues through both the cannabis excise and the sales taxes. So the sales tax would generate roughly 126 million in new state taxes on retail sales of cannabis. So that's on the $2.1 billion in sales. And the 15% wholesale cannabis excise tax would generate roughly $212 million in new state taxes. And as I mentioned before, there are additional taxes to be generated by all this economic activity. And that's an additional $195 million in state and local tax revenues through sales, corporate taxes, income taxes, property taxes, and other types of taxes across the direct, indirect, and induced impacts. In addition, the market would generate a significant amount of federal taxes. So you have payroll taxes, sales taxes, corporate income taxes, and personal income taxes that would be generated by all this economic activity and the legalization of this market. As a breakdown of the taxes, roughly 40% of all the state and local taxes will be from the wholesale cannabis excise tax, with an additional 24% coming from the cannabis sales standards retail sales tax. In addition, there'll be 13% property taxes, 3% corporate, 9% payroll, etc. On the federal side, taxes generated are mostly payroll and income taxes, in addition to some corporate taxes. The next thing we did was we took a look at average dispensary economic impacts. So what we did was we looked at the average retail sales of a medical dispensary location in 2023 and found that it was roughly $6.7 million across 176 operating dispensaries. So at this level of economic activity, each dispensary location would support nearly 110 jobs, with nearly 40 retail jobs supported directly and nearly 70 jobs supported in the value chain indirectly and through induced consumer spending. Each location itself would support over $1 million in state and local taxes via the sales and excise taxes, in addition to the normal taxes that I spoke about. In total, nearly $2 million in state and local taxes would be supported by each dispensary location's operations, and would contribute about $8 million to state GDP and nearly $6 million in income for local workers. Next, we took a look at grower processor licenses and how the expansion of the market to an adult use market would necessitate the need for new canopy space and, in turn, new licenses. So currently, there's an estimated 750,000 square feet of canopy in Pennsylvania to support the medical market. And it's estimated that existing licensees can expand that 750 to about 1.25 million square feet of canopy. So we did assume a decrease in the medical market to about 400 million here. There is some degree of cannibalization between the two markets when adult use is instituted. But so the combined sales there, we estimated was about $2.5 billion in the base case. So we made some assumptions around prices, around production yield, and about number of production per year, failure rate. And what we came up with was that we would need about 1.75 million square feet of canopy required. So this results in an additional 530,000 square feet of additional canopy needed in the base case. However, there's at least 75,000 square feet in the current program not yet utilized, as well as many operators in the program with planned canopy expansion. So assuming micro cultivation licenses capped at 10,000 square feet, roughly 46 new micro cultivation licenses would be needed in the base case. However, if only new cultivation licenses were issued and capped at 75,000 square feet, only 6 cultivation licenses would be needed in the base case. And this ranges from a low of 211,000 square feet in the low case to as many as 1,000,000 square feet, or 1,000,000 square feet in the high case. Lastly, we took a look at dispensary licenses. Depending on market size, between 43 and 100 new dispensary licenses will be needed in the state. So as I mentioned previously, as of October 2023, there were 176 operational dispensaries serving the medical market in Pennsylvania, doing about $6.7 million a year in retail sales. So assuming a $2.5 billion retail market that includes both adult use and a medical market, a total of 371 dispensary locations would be needed to satisfy demand in the base case, meaning that 195 new dispensary locations would have to begin operating. So the current medical program allows for the opening of 3 retail locations per permit. So if the adult use program were to do the same, roughly 65 additional dispensary permits would be needed to be issued in the base case. So one thing we wanted to point out here, and this is from the Pennsylvania Department of Health, that they have identified 13 underserved counties based on the average distance traveled per order, or the current population density or certification density per dispensary. So these 13 counties currently are low on the dispensary scale, and we could see additional permits in these areas. So with that, I'll wrap up and open the floor to questions. If you wanted to contact either myself or Sammy Markland, who works in our cannabis practice, our emails are listed here, and I'll turn it back to Brittany.
All right, thank you so much, Brendan. Thank you, everybody, for being here. As you can see, there's an enormous economic impact to the state of Pennsylvania that's been left on the table year after year. With large demands this year and in future years in the state budget, this is a recurring source of revenue that's been tested in other states and well studied here. It'd be irresponsible of the state legislature to not at least seriously consider the creation of an adult use market as part of this year's budget package. The responsible Pennsylvania is not advocating for any specific piece of legislation at this point, but as every caucus has indicated programs they wish to see funded, we strongly believe that this is the best revenue source on the table and can accomplish many, if not all, of the legislature's goals. Now, we're happy to take questions, and we look forward to seeing legislative action over the next couple of weeks. Yes, we will make the presentation available afterward if anybody wants a copy of it. I saw that as a direct message in the chat. Folks are able to raise their hands here, I believe, and we can unmute in order or just take some questions in the chat. Although Brenda did a great job, there are no questions. It was very thorough. Thank you. All right, Brian, go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, first of all, Brendan, thank you so much for your firm's work on this. The question I had was, as was mentioned at the top, about 90% of Pennsylvania's neighboring states have adult use. When you talk about the market demand for Pennsylvania, how much of that 2.1 billion is kind of a recapture, if you will, of individuals who are leaving the state to buy adult use elsewhere, or was that? I don't know if that's something the analysis looked at, but just curious, how much of that number is kind of recapturing from other states.
So we did not look at that specifically. We didn't look at the dynamics of who's purchasing and from where. But I think just from an economic standpoint, there would definitely be a degree of recapture. Uh, yeah, for sure.
That's good. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you everybody for joining. You have contact information for Brendan's team, and if you're here, you got the Zoom info from info@responsiblepa.org. Feel free to send questions there as well. You'll receive a copy of the report if you were here today. If you don't, please let me know or reply to that info@responsiblepa.org email address. And we hope to talk to you soon. Thank you so much.